Hey, what's up, guys? So, coming to you today with the Errol Spence versus Danny Garcia breakdown video. I am so sorry that I did not get to it, everybody. I'm doing it about 6 days before the fight. That should give you some time to check it out. But, you know, these big fights featuring my top 12 boxers and their matchups, Errol Spence being one of the top 12 in boxing. You know, I try to get the videos out about 3-4 weeks in that area and in advance. That way, you know, I get a lot more people to watch it. You know, that's kind of my goal, to kind of, because these guys are the guys that even the casual fans should be watching. That's why I have a big 12, you know, that I do, my top 12 of boxing. And, you know, like I said, Errol Spence being one of them, I want to get this out to a lot of people, the casual fans, to be able to catch on to it. That way these fights get viewed. But my bad. 3 weeks in advance was the week I was getting married, which was a couple weeks ago. It was a really busy week, and didn't even think about it. And I don't know why I thought that I had it done already. But all that being said, I do apologize. I'm getting to it now. You know, that it's going to be on Fox pay-per-view next Saturday, December 5th, on, like I said, Fox pay-per-view. It's a whole card. It's $75, but you know what? It's going to be worth it, guys. It's a good card. You got, I believe there's a couple eliminators going on the undercard. You got Josecito Lopez taking on veteran Francisco Santana. 147, Lopez staying busy. Santana's not a pushover, though. That dude can fight, so that should be decent. He's probably the biggest name on the undercard, but the other couple fights, I want to say they're both eliminators. And I believe one of them is featuring an undefeated up-and-comer, Fundora. But I'll get into that as the week comes on. I mean, you know, later in the week when I discuss my, you know, the weekly preview. But this one, again, is breaking down the fight between Errol Spence and Danny Garcia. So with each fighter, you know, again, I ask the fight. Well, first I do an introduction of what they've done coming into this fight, and then I discuss for each fighter the 5 questions, you know, that I pose, which is, first, what do they have to do to win the fight? What style do they have to, you know, have and throw at the other guy? Can they win by knockout? Can they win by decision? And then the last 2 questions is what does it do for the fighter? What does it do for boxing if they win? What does it do for the fighter? What does it do for boxing if they lose? And then at the end of it, I will do my prediction on the fight. So let's jump right in. We look at the favorite first all the time, and that is the undefeated and unified welterweight champion of the world, Errol Spence Jr. He holds both the IBF and WBC belts. Unified belts last year when he defeated Sean Porter in late September of last year in a really good fight. He got a split decision in that one. It was a close fight. Porter fought better than I expected him to against Spence. I think Spence might have been overlooking him a little bit. But needless, you know, all that being said, he got the win, and unified belt stayed undefeated. He got into a very bad car accident. He capped off, that was a capper of the year. He had dominated Mikey Garcia, who moved up 2 weight classes to fight him. He absolutely dominated him over 12 shutout rounds to retain his belt earlier in the year, and then it just didn't pan out for him, you know, like the way he wanted to against Porter, but it was still a hard-fought victory. He deserved it, and he became, you know, in unified belts. But he got into a bad car accident in October, and that, with COVID, has kind of kept him out. He was planning on fighting Danny Garcia in January, and because of the accident, the car accident and injuries sustained, you know, it got pushed back. But that was a very bad car accident. He could have been killed. He actually walked away with, you know, so-so injuries and nothing major. But because of, if you go back and look at that video, the wreck, you know, is that going to have an effect on his psyche going into the fight? You know, is he going to be a little is he going to be a little kind of jumpy in the fight? You know, is he going to be able to get as comfortable as he wants to get? Those are all big questions right there that need to be answered. And Spence, rolling in, it's going to be a big layoff. He's looking at a 14-month layoff, a little over 14 months heading into the fight. That's a long time right there. So, we're going to see how he does if he can shake out the rust and prove why he is the favorite going into the fight. Now, let's ask the 5 big questions. What kind of fight does Errol Spence need to have to be able to beat Danny Garcia? Well, Errol Spence, I believe, needs to come out boxing out the gate. I don't think he needs to engage with Danny. Definitely he needs to test the waters and let Danny know how hard he hits. That's for sure, but he doesn't need a brawl. I think Errol Spence needs to go in there, needs to fight the right kind of fight and take on, I think he needs to fight the right kind of fight and box and break down Danny Garcia. That's the one thing nobody's been able to do, is break Danny Garcia down completely and stop him in the late rounds. Danny's got a good chin. We know that. Danny can box. We know that. He's a good fighter. He's hittable, but he is going to hit you back. But I think if Errol Spence comes out throwing boxing and throwing combinations, keeps it in the middle of the ring, maybe even pushes the action a little bit, but doesn't get over aggressive. I don't think he needs to make the mistake that Keith Thurman made when they fought. Thurman came right at Danny, tried to knock him out, tried to hurt him, and didn't box his way in early. And Danny hit him back and forced Thurman to completely just stand back and box and fight off his back foot the rest of the fight. Now, I thought Thurman cleanly won, but I wanted him to be a little bit more dominant in the fight. I think Errol Spence has a potential to correct the mistakes that Thurman made in that fight by boxing, pushing the fight, but not being careless and going toe-to-toe at any point. He wants to get aggressive towards the middle, later rounds, after wearing Danny down with a body attack and good combinations and a good jab, then he should do that. But I think Errol Spence needs to be going into this fight with the plan to break Danny Garcia down. That's what I think he needs to do, in order to accomplish that. Now, can Errol Spence beat Danny Garcia by knockout? It's a good question. Danny's always had a great chin. I don't think I've ever seen Danny get hurt in a fight. Doesn't mean he can't, though. My opinion is, I think Errol Spence has the talent and the ability to knock Danny out. I do. I don't think he's got the one-punch power to do it, because Danny, again, has a good chin, and he also throws right back at you. So that kind of protects him from being hit a second, third time cleanly. I don't know if he can knock Danny out early. I think Danny's got Danny does have a great chin, but I do think he could wear Danny down and knock him out late. I think that's possible. So, can he knock him out? I think so. Can Errol Spence win a decision over Danny Garcia? And the answer to that is yes. I think if it goes to a decision, in all likelihood, you're looking at Errol Spence winning the fight. I think the odds are 70 to 80 if it goes to the scorecards. I think Errol Spence is going to get a decision victory. I think he's a better boxer. He's an aggressive. He's a boxer / puncher, and I think talent-wise he's better. But he definitely doesn't want to discount Danny the way I believe he did Sean Porter. I think he overlooked Sean Porter, which is why that fight was closer than a lot of people expected, especially myself. I think he needs to take the Danny Garcia fight very serious. Danny is a threat. Danny can fight. And I think if he does that, he could pull off a clean decision victory if he can do that. But we'll see. But definitely he could win a decision. Now, what does it do for Errol Spence? What does it do for boxing if Spence beats Danny Garcia? Well, for Errol Spence personally, it's going to be one of the better wins of his career. Yes, it's going to be during COVID. Is it going to be the biggest win of his career? That's up for debate. He's got some good ones. Kell Brook, Mikey Garcia, Sean Porter, those are all big victories. Maybe the Porter win, you rank a little higher. But it really depends on how he beats Danny. Danny's a good fighter. Yeah, Danny lost to Porter, but Danny's a very good welterweight. So, it potentially could be one of the biggest 2-3 biggest victories of his professional career. So, and Danny is a top 6 welterweight right now. I got him ranked 6th in the best division in boxing. He's top 3 in any other division. So, Danny's legit. This is a big fight, and it will be a big win and could lead to bigger things for Errol Spence if he wins this fight. That rolls into, is it good for boxing if he wins? Absolutely. Errol Spence is one of the pound-for-pound guys that people want to see fight every time he goes out there. I think it'd be very good for boxing if Errol Spence wins, because it keeps everybody pointed in the direction of Spence versus Terrence Crawford, which is the fight that everybody wants to see. I think people, especially boxing experts, historians, fans, everybody combined, I think that's the fight that people want to see the most right there, is Spence versus Terrence Crawford. So it's good for boxing if Spence holds on, stays undefeated, and becomes and pushes forward towards a potential matchup with Crawford at some point. Now, what does it do for Crawford? What does it do for boxing if he loses? Well, if he loses to Danny, it would depend on how he lost. I don't think too many people are going to be surprised if he loses this fight to Danny. Yes, he's the favorite, but that accident, you never know what an accident like that, a traumatic event, can do to a guy's mind. So if Danny comes out, wins a close decision, or even a convincing decision, but Errol Spence fights hard, I don't think it's going to hurt Errol Spence too much, especially coming back after 14 months, the car accident, all this during COVID. I don't think it's going to hurt him too much. It's going to derail him, of course, for the moment, but I'm sure he probably has a rematch clause in a contract, something like that, to where he can go right back in. But if he gets knocked out by Danny, that could definitely hurt him, hurt his psyche and derail him even more, because if he gets knocked out and it's a brutal one, that could definitely hurt him. So, it depends on how he loses, that fight. Now, what does it do for boxing if he loses? Well, like I said, it derails the fight with Spence and Crawford, so I think it hurts boxing if he loses this fight. So, a lot of pressure on Spence to win this fight and win convincingly so he can push forward. So, that's the thing. When you're the favorite and you're one of the top 12 like this, there's a lot of pressure, especially when there's potential super matchups out there like him and Crawford. Okay, let's roll over to Danny Garcia and ask the same 5 questions. First question is, what does Danny Garcia need to do to win this fight? Danny needs to, in my opinion, I always say this as an underdog, he needs to fight the perfect fight against Errol Spence. Spence can box, but Spence also gets a little bit careless in there, and he likes to brawl. He needs to take advantage of those exchanges. He's got a good chin. He needs to not be afraid to go after, to engage and chuck with Spence when Spence gets in there. Maybe Spence can hurt him, but you know what? Danny's never been put down or hurt in his career. So he revels being the underdog. He needs to take that role in this fight. He needs to come in guns blazing like it's his last hurrah, because you never know when it could be. Danny's been around for a long time, man. He's been around since 2011. He's been a legit fighter. He beat Kendall Holt, former champion, in 2011, knocked out Amir Khan and beat Eric Morales in 2012, and then has never stopped. He's always been a key top guy in boxing since then, and a relevant guy. He's never fallen off the map. Any loss that he's had hasn't derailed him. I think he's only lost twice to Thurman and Porter, and those are both technically close fights. I thought the fight with Thurman he lost, but he's coming off of a nice win in January where he stayed busy, took on Ivan Redkach, got a 12-round decision. So in between fights, it's only going to be, 11 months, or actually closer to 10 months, because he fought Redkach at the end of January, and this fight's at the beginning of December. So, that's generally in the area. Danny fights about every 6 to 8 months. So this is not a big gap for Danny in terms of rust and all that kind of stuff. So Danny really has the motivation, and he's been in this position before as an underdog and as a live underdog. So I think Danny needs to take that and he needs to try to win the exchanges. But if Errol Spence is going to push him, he needs to box, and he needs to land that left hook and that jab. He needs to throw a jab. He definitely needs to throw a jab. Try to land that big left hook when Spence makes a mistake of coming in. He needs to try to pinpoint that punch. If he does that, I think Danny has a chance at a couple things. Possibly a knockout, possibly winning a close decision, if he can pull that off. Now, can Danny win by knockout? You know what? I think so. If he catches, Danny's a strong guy. If he catches Errol Spence, he could hurt him. I mean, I have seen no evidence that Errol Spence can't be hurt. I mean, he hasn't necessarily been in there, and but he's been kind of a couple times been caught, but nothing major. I haven't seen him get really hurt, but Danny can hit. So can Danny win by knockout? Yeah, he could catch Spence. He could also possibly wear him down in this fight. Danny's good enough to do something like that and win by a late knockout. So I think Danny could win by knockout. That's possible. Can Danny win a decision? I think that's possible too. Again, Errol Spence has been out of the ring coming into this fight 4 months longer than Danny Garcia has, and he really had to work hard last time. He's been through a traumatic car accident. Danny, all he's been doing is training for this fight. So Danny has that edge in terms of stamina and rust, and he's also, again, been in this role. So can he win a decision? I think he can. I think he might be able to win a close decision, possibly even a convincing decision. It is possible. What does it do for Danny Garcia? What does it do for boxing if he wins? For Danny, it's the biggest win of his career. To win the Unified Welterweight Title and beat one of the two guys that are tied for number one in Errol Spence in the number one division in boxing, biggest win of his career. It'd be huge, and it sets up big fights. Pacquiao, Mikey Garcia, Terrence Crawford, a rematch with Porter, a rematch with Thurman. This makes Danny the belle of the ball right here. It would be huge. What does it do for boxing? It hurts boxing a little bit, but Danny's got a good name, and he's still a good fighter. If Danny pulls off the upset here, I know I said with Errol Spence that it would hurt boxing. Maybe because Errol Spence is a star in the making, and undefeated, and people like that kind of storyline, and people want to see him and Crawford. But you know what? I don't think now that I'm looking at Danny's side of it, I don't think it really hurts Danny. I mean, I don't really think it hurts boxing if Danny wins, because Danny is a stud. He is a star. He is a big name. And he's a very, very good fighter and former champion. So I don't think it hurts boxing if Danny wins this fight. I think it potentially could help because he's already a star. So yeah, definitely could help. It might be better for Spence for boxing, but I don't think it hurts boxing if Danny wins. Now, what does it do for Danny? What does it do for boxing if he loses this fight? Well, it would depend on how he lost. For Danny's sake, I'm almost looking at this fight like in terms of the top tier fights, like an Errol Spence. This might be his last big shot at one of those, because, it's been, he goes through this every couple years. Took on Sean Porter, took on Errol Spence, and he lost those fights. They were tough fights, but he lost them. Is Errol Spence the last of those? Is he going to be in line to fight one of the top 3 or 4 after this? Will they give him the time of day after this? It depends on how he loses. If he loses a close decision and proves he's still legit, then I think he will get another opportunity, But if he gets his ass whipped and he loses a one-sided fight, or he gets knocked out, he might get written off after that. He might be looked at as a stepping stone guy after that, But I think he is better than that. I absolutely think he's better than that. So, it just depends on how he loses this fight. What does it do for boxing if he loses a fight? I don't think it's really going to hurt boxing. Again, I think either guy winning this fight, it's going to help. It's going to be a good thing. Maybe it'll help boxing a little more if Errol Spence gets the win, but Danny is not a pushover, and he's deserving. So I think it'd be good for boxing, too, if he were to win. But if he were to lose, it's not going to hurt boxing, really, I don't think. Danny, I don't think people would be surprised. I think, Errol Spence is the favorite for a reason. And I don't think it's really going to hurt boxing if Danny loses. Maybe hurt it a little bit if Danny gets his ass whipped, because Danny is a stud. He is a star. He is a guy people want to see. But I don't think it's gonna really hurt it overall. And now the final question is, who's gonna win this fight between Errol Spence and Danny Garcia for the Unified Welterweight Title? Well, my prediction is Errol Spence is going to win this fight. I believe he's going to outbox, outwork Danny, and he's going to get a hard-fought but deserving 12-round unanimous decision in this one. I see the fight being 8-4, 9-3, but it has the potential to be closer, and I also think Errol Spence has the potential to make it a wider win. Depends on how Errol Spence looks. I think Errol Spence, if he is on a Terrence Crawford level and a pound-for-pound level, then he has control to dominate or to make it close. He's no different than Vasily Lomachenko. Lomachenko showed too much respect to Teofimo Lopez for the first 7 rounds, and he lost the fight because of it. I think Lomachenko beat himself more than Lopez beat Lomachenko. I think Errol Spence, if he is on that kind of level, has the same kind of potential. He can blow Danny out if he's that good, or it could be close. And, maybe Danny can do what Teofimo Lopez did and beat him. But it's really up to Spence and him working hard and, making that decision if he's going to work hard enough to and do enough in the ring to dominate this fight. That's what pound-for-pound fighters do. And Errol Spence has that opportunity. Personally, I think because of all the things, the accidents, COVID, how long he's been out of the ring, I think he's going to win a clean decision. But I think it is going to be a good matchup. It might not be Errol Spence at his 150% best, but it's going to be Errol Spence going to be ready to fight, and he's going to win by a clean decision over Danny Garcia. So I hope you guys enjoyed this Errol Spence, Danny Garcia breakdown. They fight Saturday, December 5th, main event of the Fox pay-per-view card. Do not miss it, guys. You will not be disappointed. I hope you enjoyed it. True Boxing, you've been hit with the truth.